Time once again for No Sleep Teal, a show dedicated to talk, discussion involving the Jacksonville Jaguars. Travis Reier alongside Evan Reier. A little bit different surroundings on this show, Evan, as you know, a week near and dear to your heart. It's Reier Palooza down at Crescent Beach, just south of St. Augustine. Been doing this for the entirety of your lifetime. Look forward to you joining us here in the next couple of days. So this backdrop has to feel at least somewhat nostalgic to you, I would think.
No, I'm jealous as can be. I mean, I'm coming down tomorrow, but just seeing it made me go, "Wow!" I can smell the sunscreen. I can smell the food that mom's cooking or whoever's cooking. I'm excited to be down there. It's always a great time down at Crescent Beach.
Yeah, Italian night last night, you missed it, but like you
Dang,
said, there's always
leftovers.
we do the different themes almost every night, so
Yeah,
you'll catch one of those great nights coming up here in the next couple. You're fresh from Bonnaroo, the music
yeah.
festival up in Manchester, Tennessee. It looked like a really cool lineup, a little bit of something for everybody. But with that being said, the showstopper for you over the course of that multi-day event, who would that act have been?
I'm gonna say two real quick. The first one was no surprise. I'm a massive Krungbin fan, and they put on the best show I've seen them do. I've seen them three times, and that was easily the best. Was able to get very, very close, and they were just fantastic. Crushed it. But the kind of surprise act, I knew them, but I didn't like really know. I didn't know their game like that. Was this band called Parcels? They're like an Australian kind of funky, I don't know, like almost like Steely Dan s vibe. Sometimes there's a little bit of jamming going on too. They went on super late on Saturday, and that was mind blowing. I literally had no idea what I was getting into, and they crushed it as well. So those were the two standouts for me.
So kind of like the Shaq meme. I wasn't familiar with your game.
Literally, yeah. I mean, it was I walked up and I was like, "Yeah, this is going to be a fun show to dance to. This will be a fun party." And then I
Yeah,
walked away saying, "Wow, these guys are like just
legit.
fantastic performers." Yeah, like it was just great. So,
That's the beauty of Bonnaroo. And the times I've been and we've been together, going back to when you were like 12, I guess. That's some
yeah.
parenting, isn't it? Was the exposure, to
Yeah.
stuff or bands or acts you otherwise really wouldn't have known much about. And sometimes it can be as kind of captivating as you're walking through the festival and from this direction you hear something that you really haven't heard before, but you're like, who the hell is that?
I got to go
Like,
check it out.
I got to go check that out. That's always been a fun part of that, no doubt. But while you were away at Bonnaroo, the news came down. Trevor Lawrence, the anticipated deal for the Jaguars starting quarterback. It was big in numbers. We had speculated, I think, about not just total value of the contract, but guaranteed money. I don't think we were all that far off in the end game, but just wanted your initial thoughts. I know there's been a lot of discourse about good deal, bad deal. Of course, that depends too on which perspective you're looking at it from. I don't know if I'd go as far as to say it's team friendly, but within the confines of what it costs to do business with a playoff caliber quarterback, which I think most people would think Trevor is that kind of guy. The numbers they didn't shock me. I don't know about you.
Well, so the number, it's that average annual salary that everyone's balking at, right? Like everyone's seeing that and they go 55 million. He's, now the in terms of, average annual salary, he's tied with Joe Burrow at the very top. So I get why people are like, well, has he earned, top of the line money like that? Is he really, is he that good? I'd like to say so, yes. But more importantly, when you start to look at the contract, you as a Jags fan, any concerns you had about that really should be mitigated because they have backloaded this thing like crazy and also set themselves up with a way that let's say things go sour, they can actually get out of this deal without getting to the numbers that really make your eyes water. For example, in 2024, he's basically rocking the rookie contract as he is basically in 2025 as well. He's only going to have a 15 million cap hit in 2024. $17 million in 2025. And then after that is when we start to see it hike up a little bit. The it goes to 24 million cap hit in 2026, 35 in 27, and then 47 in 28. Now, 47 and 28, with all the contracts that are going to come out in between now and then, even that number that feels like a high number for anybody is going to be not even top 10 by that point in
Yep.
2028. So I really do think that, this is a very shrewd deal. They make their, star quarterback, their generational quarterback, very happy. They give him a ton of money. Uh, and then simultaneously, they have not screwed themselves over with cap hit at all. And after that 2028 year, nothing is guaranteed. So, I mean, when you get to the insane numbers of he has a $50 million salary in 2029, that's before any of the option bonuses or anything like that. 53 million in 2030. The Jags are safe. I mean, whether this goes good or bad, they wanted to commit to him for at least 3 to 4 years, anyways, no matter what. And I really do think that this is all in all like a winner for all sides.
Yeah, I don't think it's the good deal or the bad deal perspective. It's the deal. If you
Yeah,
were going to get this deal done right now, this was going to be the deal. And for some of the reasons that you pointed out, I don't think it's a bad deal for the Jaguars at all. Now, your hope is you have to revisit it maybe later in the deal because you've been to 4 or 5 playoffs and maybe a Super Bowl with this guy and a couple of conference championship games and say 28, 29, you want to go ahead and hit him again because he's only 24 years old, too, in all this. So there's a lot of upside down the road. And if you, as you said, if it doesn't work out for whatever reason, you can work your way through that at some point in the next 3 or 4 years and transition that way as well. So, I'm almost led to believe if Trevor fulfills his potential, you're right. He's going to be looking at 28, 29. Okay, can we kind of work something else here now,
yeah,
potentially? Because the numbers, as you pointed out, 3, 4 years down the road, with the deals that are about to get done for like Tua
yeah.
and some other young quarterbacks, this is going to look better and better, I think.
Yeah, I think there's no question about that. I really, when the deal was announced, I was at Bonnaroo, and then and so I didn't really get to take a good look at it. I only saw the initial numbers about the average salary and all that stuff, and I was like, yeah, here we go. Like this is a whole lot, and I was hoping that they did something like this rather than front load it because sometimes the Jags have a ton of cap space right now. They could have basically done something where okay, well, we're going to pay you more than what we're actually going to pay you in the ensuing years. I like this better. I
Mhm.
really think that this is, the kind of deals that when teams set themselves up for success long term, this is what it looks like. Because you're basically, almost trying to get more of that same kind of those same benefits that you get from the rookie contract of, yeah, the number's going up over time, but you're keeping your overall cap hit down. The Jaguars should have no issue paying guys and keeping a offensive, kind of group of weapons together. Basically, the entirety of this contract. It's going to get a little tough, in 4 or 5 years, but really, even then, it should be fine.
Am I convinced that everyone in the organization is 1000% convinced that Trevor Lawrence is the guy to take this franchise where it wants to go on a year in and year out basis? I'm not. But again, this is the kind of deal, if you even think he might be, that
Yeah,
you had to do at this point. I think there's certainly people in Miller Electric facility that are still a little bit
jury's
uncertain,
out. Yeah,
but this is the cost of doing business with playoff caliber quarterbacks. And do you think Trevor Lawrence? I mean, he's been to the playoffs, obviously, won a playoff game, kind of had a horrific half and then a tremendous half in that playoff win. Uh, do you think he is though? That's sort of the defining measure of all this for me. This is what you pay a playoff caliber quarterback, whether it's Kirk Cousins or any of these kind of guys.
yeah, and if someone else wants to find apparently a playoff quarterback lying around that you can pay for less than this, and let us know. I mean, we
Right.
could have considered that. I mean, when when I had a bunch of people coming up to me, I wore my Trevor Lawrence jersey on Saturday at Bonnaroo, and had a bunch of random people come up to me like, "That's a lot of money, bro," or like, "How you feeling about it?" Like whatever. And
Total value, it is a lot of money.
oh, it's a ton. It's 200 million
And and
guaranteed. I
and,
mean,
and he
it's
got
yeah,
his 200 million guaranteed. That's a lot of money.
yeah,
Um, but again, a month or so ago, we were throwing just numbers around and in length of contract and those type of things. And I don't, it kind of sounded crazy then to hear us say those numbers. But as it got closer, I guess I just became not sort of resigned because I don't feel bad or good about the deal. I'm kind of indifferent to it. But it's, I guess, what I expected.
yeah,
There's just not the shock and all there with
yeah.
what
I
the
mean,
economics are in the NFL these days.
well, we're also plugged in. I think, considering that the Jaguars are one of the smallest markets and just in general, don't aren't really a team that, the national audience is paying a ton of attention to on a day-to-day basis. Not nothing like the Cowboys or the 49ers, those kinds of teams. Um, I think people were like, they only see things from a distance, from a macro kind of scale. So they see this number and they see like his stats and they're like, something's not adding up. But everybody that I think is watching the Jags day in day out at least has this feeling of we we can't afford to let guys like this walk. Like
Right.
I mean, over the past decade or really 2 decades, the amount of players that we've had that have been really really good that instead of paying we have let go. And I'm not even Jalen Ramsey is a great example. Jawan Taylor's another one where it's like I know Jawan Taylor wasn't considered. There were plenty of Jags fans that didn't think he was everything he's cracked up to be or whatever. But again, when you're trying to be competitive, you don't like just let your best players walk, or you don't like try and nickel and dime them. Um, you try to get good value, and I think that's what this is. So overall, definitely feeling good about it. It's nice. Just it's also peace of mind, and we talked about it a few weeks ago when we talked about it. Morale. This is supposed to be a leader of the team, a leader in the locker room. You have showed the rest of the team by paying Josh Allen and then now Trevor that you get rewarded when you ball out. That this is an organization that wants to reward you.
And I think with Trevor specifically, and you mentioned that this is the guy you're hanging your hat on as the face of your franchise, as the preeminent leader in that locker room, is that by going to this step, you're saying, okay, yeah, here it is. Here's the top 10 type of deal for a starting quarterback in the National Football League. I think the Jags are hoping intangibly Trevor takes on more of that sort of persona
Yeah.
within the locker room, because I think if there is a concern, whether it be physically or intangibly with him right now, I don't think it has anything to do with physical
No.
attributes. He's still that guy. I think if there is, and maybe there isn't, but if I were in that building, my concern would still be, is this the guy that those other 50 plus guys are going to follow? Like,
Right.
wholeheartedly, and understanding this is professional football. This isn't rah rah high school ball and all, win the team and all that we hear. It still matters though, that your
Oh yeah.
guy behind center is that guy that others will follow, and do what needs to be done to reach that next level. And sort of as a part of this discussion, Evan wanted to get into some offseason plus minus for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, when you take into account going back to the start of the offseason and some of the waiver activity that took place with a couple of DBs of note, Darius Williams, Rayshon Jenkins, you kind of move through that process. Free agency gets underway. Calvin Ridley ends up in Tennessee. You end up with Gabe Davis, Mitch Morse coming down from Buffalo. Eric Armstead comes in from San Francisco. You get into the draft. You take Brian Thomas Jr. in the first round as a wide receiver. You do some other things in that draft that seem like, anyway, you've got some positivity coming from through OTAs and minicamp. And then now, culminating sort of with the Trevor deal. I saw where ESPN, I guess it was recently, graded off seasons for the NFL teams and gave the Jags a C plus. I mean, that's about as middle of the road as you probably can get. I made a lot of C's. I didn't even make a lot of C pluses back in my academic career. But where do you sort of see all this now, culminating with this deal for Trevor and kind of where this team is?
I think this is obviously one of the biggest pluses of the offseason. Again, it and what that the deal for Josh Allen represents are huge, not just on the field but off the field as well. Um, I think when you talk about those key pluses, those are the things bring that grade up. So to say, I would also say the Eric Armstead deal. I mean, that's probably my personal favorite move of the offseason is actually the Eric Armstead deal, just because it has the potential to me to be a kind of Calais Campbell type signing. This is
Mhm.
a veteran that you know has had some really good years, has been a very good player on a talented defense. Knows what it takes to make a Super Bowl, knows what it takes to do all those things, just like Calais Campbell did. And if people go back and look, Calais Campbell didn't have his best years until he got to Jacksonville. A lot of people think, Calais Campbell had, just, insane production before he got to Jags, but he really, shined when he got to Jacksonville. I'm hoping that Eric Armstead can, reach a new height in that same way. So um, that's the, kind of the biggest plus for me. What's your kind of like biggest plus of the offseason?
I love the Armstead move as well. Um, it's sounding more and more like Jarian Jones in the third round could
It's a
be a
steal.
revelation
Yeah.
for that defense, sounding as if it's going to be tougher and tougher to keep him off the field in the secondary from day one, including against an opener against a team in the Miami Dolphins that are absolutely going to stress this revamped Ryan Nielsen defense from opening kick to final whistle. Um, I like the Trevor deal getting done as well. Again, I think there's a little bit of trepidation in that and understanding he is still young, but you're hoping this sort of expedites his growth in
Yeah.
some ways and creates more of a persona where you're not as worried about perhaps a Marcus Mariota path for
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence. I think
It's,
personalities. I'm talking personalities here, right, with the
yeah.
quarterback position. Or I'll stay with the Titans. Ryan Tannehill. I mean, he's a playoff caliber quarterback by definition, right? But
Yeah. He's done it several times.
not a 50 million, I guess, that you would think about type of guy. Can he elevate from that sort of tier?
Yeah.
Can he get to the Josh Allens? I'm not saying anybody has to be Patrick Mahomes. That's unicorn territory. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to put that on anybody, including Trevor, but just upper echelon. But I feel good about the offseason moves in general. Calvin Ridley at the time
Really
felt
bad.
especially rough because right within that you had Diggs going from Buffalo to Houston. There was a lot of stuff happening at wide receiver, right, within the
Yeah.
division. And, that was sort of alleviated by Gabe Davis coming in, but then taking Brian Thomas Jr. in the first round. I think that helped with sort of that perception of it. Those would probably be a couple of my highs and lows. What about a low for you? Did you have a low this off season to this point?
Yeah, I think the low is it's not like a decision that was made, but I guess something that didn't happen. I personally, I'm happy as Cleveland sticking around. I really wish they would have gotten like another ready to start guard. I love that Mitch Morse has joined the team. I think that's going to be a huge deal. I think, while Fortner was promising in his rookie season last year, he was the worst offensive lineman in the lineup. Um, I really wish they had added one more guy to potentially, step in there because, with Walker Little backing up the tackle position, Walker Little's not great, but that's fine. He's the quality of player that you can be satisfied with on a backup and potentially, can step in for a string of games and do well. Really behind Cleveland and Scherf. I mean, I know Tyler Shatley's been doing it forever. I love the fact that he's still with the team, but him and then rookie Javon Foster being kind of your guys to back things up, it just makes me nervous because you're going to pay Trevor all this money, but you really only did one thing to address protecting him. I think it's a good one, but yeah, that's kind of my biggest thing is I really did think that they had to go get an interior guard. The only other one that I'll mention, kind of in a similar vein, is I also wish they'd kind of gotten a guy that a proven Arden Key type. When we had Arden Key that year, came off the bench, rotated in, got like 6 sacks over the year. You love guys like that, and you have to have guys like that. I am wondering where the Jags are going to get that from the
Do you
current
think
roster.
Travis Gibson could give them some of that? It's a different defense too,
Yeah,
and going from the concepts of what they were doing before to Ryan Nielsen,
yeah.
different kind of player than Arden Key. Travis Gibson is.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Travis Gibson has experience, kind of lining up in a stand-up linebacker role. He's got experience lining up on the edge,
Not
finger,
prolific,
but some,
You
So
want
I want to see, like, it would be great if he could find a situation where he does kind of provide that kind of alternate pass rushing option, and is somewhat prolific. I'd love to see 5 sacks out of him, but I just it's that move. While I'm going to be optimistic about Gibson, did not move the needle for me. I
no.
mean, he's had the 1 7 sack year in which he did kind of play in a an edge rushing role, but that was also that was 2021. He also started the majority of those. He was in a starting role when he got 7 sacks that year. He's not going to start really at all unless something bad happens. So
But a
it's going to be
situational
yeah.
kind of guy,
He had 1 sack in a situational rotational role last year in 8
Yeah.
games. So, he's got an interesting sample size. Again, new coach, new team. It's not fair to him to say like, well, I don't think it's going to work out when I said that it's going to work out for Eric Armstead. So, trying to be fair to him there. But yeah,
What
that's kind
about
of
you mentioned the interior offensive line, the guard spot specifically. You know, Jags seemed pretty high on Cooper Hodges a year ago as a late round pick that
yeah.
could potentially provide depth. And of course, he had the injury that cost him the 2023 season. Perhaps there's still that same sort of optimism for him, even coming off that injury. Maybe it's a guy like Cooper Hodges that they figure can adequately fill one of those depth sort of voids that they have.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, I would say Cooper Hodges is a name to consider in terms of okay, let's see what he's got. Again, I'm not trying to hate on Javon Foster. He's
Right.
also, potentially going to have a big role this year. But no, I think the Jags made the decisions because they felt good about it. They feel good about this group, or they feel like they're taking strides and really, or that all they really had to do was in terms of the starting five was center.
Hmm.
And I want to trust them on that. Again, I guess for me, it's almost like handling. It's like like putting like two deadbolts on your door or something like that. Like you're not just locking it. You're not just flipping the lock so that it's
You
hard
want
to
you
open.
want it like a vault, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. I want it locked down. Like I don't want any issues with this offensive line at all this year because really the past 2 years that's been the kind of the weak link on the offense. I mean,
Yeah.
so it's yeah. I mean, I would love for Cooper Hodges to rebound from injury, but we don't really. I mean, we just haven't seen it yet. He's
No,
very much an unknown quantity.
he is for sure. No doubt about that. We talked about Gabe Davis a little bit earlier coming in from the Buffalo Bills during this offseason. Wanted to get into some over-unders. Last show, we did some for Trevor. We did some for Trayvon Walker. We're going to get into Gabe Davis during this offseason segment. And where we'll start with him, we'll start with Gabe Davis, Evan, is receptions for the 2024 season. In the four previous seasons, he's pretty much been between 35 to 45 grabs with the Buffalo Bills. He had a high of 48 a couple of seasons ago in 2022. So I'm going to set it. I'm going to set it at 48 and a half. I'm going to go a half reception over his previous high with the Bills of 48. You're going to go over or under that for Gabe Davis?
That's a tough one. Man, I'm actually going to go under, and that's not really a knock on how I think he's going to produce this year overall, but I just think that with Christian Kirk, with Brian
Now's
Thomas Jr., with
yep.
all these different options, it's going to be. I mean, Gabe Davis could end up becoming like there is a world in which Gabe Davis does lead the team in every single one of these categories. Um, but I think that the Jags are really, and Doug Peterson especially, is very focused on spreading the ball around. And Gabe Davis, while he was in Buffalo, had to deal with multiple other strong, like impressive targets like Stephon Diggs. Um, so I'm going to say under. I think big play Gabe is still very much a thing, but I'm going to say, he probably gets to the 40 mark. I don't think 50 is really where I see him.
Yeah, with Brian Thomas coming in and Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram, and you're still, by the way, hoping you can run the football with Etienne.
Well, or
Um,
at the very least, throw them the ball too. I
yeah,
mean, put
and
them in
throw it to
space.
him.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm going to go a little bit over it, though. I'm going to go a
Okay.
tad over the 48 and a half. But the next stat that we'll get into, I think is going to be even more important because if this goes over, I think it'll validate a couple things. First of all, I think it'll validate that probably Brian Thomas Jr. has had at least the immediate impact on this offense that you hope. And this is yards per catch for Gabe Davis. And when we look at him with the Bills in the previous 4 seasons, his season high was 17.4, again, a couple of years ago when he had the career high 48 catches in the regular season. So I'm going to set it at 17 and a half yards per catch. This isn't with Josh Allen, as we know. This is with Trevor. But again, if he's under, I'm going to wonder a little bit. I'm going to be thinking, well, maybe Brian Thomas didn't exactly provide the space for some other guys like Gabe Davis that you hope that his speed would. But if Gabe Davis is over as well, then I think that's going to say a good thing or two about some different areas of this offense.
For sure. And that is where I said like, under on the receptions, but I wasn't saying that really boded for everything else. I'm slamming the over on this yards per reception. I think Gabe Davis is going to have the highest yards per reception of his career. Um, I'm thinking like in the 18.5 range.
Wow.
I'm thinking like this is going to be the big play threat. I mean, every year this dude, has like I think he's averaged like something like at least 5 40-yard catches like per season, which is just crazy. Um and Yeah, so I'm gonna slam that. I think he is going to kind of carve out that role as kind of the deep shot jump ball kind of vibe, which Brian Thomas can provide that too. But Gabe Davis has the experience, and he's also just got this knack for physically just dominating corners in that setting. I think the Jags are really going to try to abuse that.
Yeah, and with that size too, if Thomas is creating that space, you should be able to get it to Davis on those deeper in breaking routes, right? The dig
Yeah,
route at 15 to 18 yards before he even catches it. Um, more of those aggressive middle of the field shots. Now you got to protect Trevor, but if you're running the football also, that helps protect Trevor. So mix, I think, is an entire type of situation can help Gabe Davis get to that 17 and a half plus yards per catch. What about touchdown catches for Gabe Davis in 2024? The number I've got for you on that one, Evan, 7.5. He pretty much lived with the Bills right around 7. In fact, in 3 of the 4 seasons up in Buffalo, he had 7 touchdown grabs in the regular seasons, had 6 in the 2021 regular season. So which way you going with 7.5 on that one?
I'm going to go slightly over, not by a whole lot. I think it's like 8 or 9. But I think I think they're again besides just making big plays, which he's going to score if he makes enough big plays. That kind of frame, you have to give targets in the red zone. The Jags have other red zone targets, but that's as much as I love Evan Ingram, that's not really his strong suit. Is getting into the back of the
He's
end zone.
not he's not Gronk.
Yeah,
He's not that
exactly.
kind of guy down there.
They need that. They desperately need somebody reliable in the that back corner of the end zone to high point and bring down a catch. So I'm thinking like 8 touchdowns, which would be fantastic. I would be very happy with that from Gabe Davis.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on the over there too, for Gabe Davis for a couple reasons. You talked about the physicality and some of the 50-50 balls he can go win for you. Um, I like that part of what he's going to bring to the mix. And you said it. I mean, even with Evan, that he's not that sort of Gronk Kelsey guy, right? In the red zone at the tight end position. In fact, when you look at the last 5 or 6 seasons for Evan Ingram between the Giants and the Jags, his season high for touchdown catches has been each of the last 2 seasons with 4 in 17 games. That's not a ton. So there will be room for Gabe Davis to make his mark for sure inside the 20-yard line. Well, Evan, that's about all I got for you, man. Keeping this one somewhat short and sweet, but feel like we hit on the relevant topics. And if you got anything else you want to wrap up before we get out of here, now's the time to do it.
No, I don't really have a whole lot to say other than I think overall it's the vibes continue to climb for the Jaguars. I think the most of the moves this offseason, while there were some stuff that people wanted to happen that didn't happen, whatever. Vibes are good. Everything I saw online this weekend, at least from Jags fans, was yeah, this is awesome. Let's party. Trevor's the guy for I mean this decade. He's going to
Yeah,
basically,
really through the
yeah, I mean,
decade, he's under contract, right?
yeah. So, no, it's good vibes, and now just excited to get down, drive through Jacks, and then just keep on going just a little bit to get to y'all at the beach. So,
South, just a little south of Duval the next few
absolutely.
days for our guy, Evan Reier, who we always appreciate joining us here on No Sleep Teal. If you enjoy the show, please take the time right now to subscribe to the channel right here. Hit a like button for us if you don't mind. That would help us out tremendously. And turn on those notifications so you get every one of these shows as it drops. Ev, safe travels south and look forward to catching up in a format other than StreamYard here in the next day or so. I know your mother's very excited as well, your grandparents, everybody. Everybody's ready to see you. So we'll talk to you real soon, and we'll do this again real soon, too.
Sounds like a plan.
For Evan Reier, Travis Reier, thanks again for joining us on No Sleep Till. And until next time, so long, everybody.
See ya.